week was ring week. We knew that we were playing for a championship, and the most important thing for us was to finish the season the right way. And we won the championship. We were celebrating. I go in, check my phone, and my agent had left me a message, said that Missouri was on their way to meet with me and wanted to set up a meeting with me. My daughter was performing in the Nutcracker at 7 p.m. and so I said, well, I got to go watch the Nutcracker because I'm a father first, and then we'll figure all that stuff out. And then, I mean, as everybody understands in this business, things move incredibly fast. And so next thing you know, I'm on the Paul Finebaum show as the head coach of the SEC. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that, does it? I distinctly remember one of my first jobs at Auburn was to drive up to Huntsville, Alabama, and pick up Coach Chiswick and drive him to the High School Coaches Association clinic. And I'll distinctly remember I took the wrong turn, and Coach Chiswick was in the passenger side, and Trooper Taylor was behind me. And so I cut a U-turn on the middle of the road, and Trooper Taylor still gives me crap about that. You can never cut a U-turn in the middle of the road with the head football coach of an SEC school, but that's when I knew I was going to be able to make it in this thing. You have to make tough decisions, and at that point I had to get him to where he needed to be, which was at the coaches clinic. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is I got to decide what's important versus what's urgent. You know, not everything that's urgent is important, and not everything that's important is urgent. So that's what we're deciphering through. The most important thing for me was yesterday getting in front of my football team and putting my arms around them and clearly portraying who I am as a person and who I am as a football coach to them. And then today it's been, you know, presenting myself to our alumni, to our fan base, to everybody that touches Mizzou football. And then, you know, I got my phone on me right now. I've been texting, calling, recruiting. I'm going to be on a plane later tonight and getting in people's homes. And that's what we got to do. And as we're doing that, then I've got to formulate the plan for what we're going to do with our staff and how we're going to fill that in and how we're going to continue to move Mizzou football forward and how we're going to compete for the SEC East. And at the end of the day, that's why they hired me to do this job. It's so we can compete in the SEC East. And we all know that if you're competing in the SEC East, then that means you're competing at the national level. Well, we've got a full recruiting staff. They're still in place, and there's guys here still that are helping me recruit, and that's what I'm leaning on for them to do right now. And then I got to do the heavy lifting. I mean, they don't pay us this kind of money for us to delegate it to other people. That's our jobs. So I'm out there and recruiting, and that's what I'm supposed to do, and that's what I'm going to get done. And coffee's my best friend right now.
Oh, it's not Jerry Springer, right?
Welcome back. We've had a really good time this week. We had both the coaches from Army and Navy on, and today Will Healy, who's a coach at Charlotte, which a couple of years ago, let's be honest, was a laughingstock. But it is no more. They're going bowling this year. And Coach, thanks for being on. Congratulations. This is a relatively new program, but it is off and running, going to a bowl game.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome to be here. Yeah, I mean, it's been incredible. Took over in December. Feels like it's been about 7 years wrapped up into one, but been an amazing season and a lot of fun to be a part of.
Well, you grew up in Tennessee and Chattanooga. You coached at Austin Peay, so you know the South. And by the way, I'm from Tennessee, and I'm still trying to figure out if this is the South, although I'm told it is.
Some people would argue with you in Tennessee, but I think it's part of the South.
It really is. Legally, it was the South. But we want to share with the audience, especially those of you watching, so those of you listening, you'll be able to figure out. But this is you getting ready for the trip to the Bahamas.
Working out really hard, you can tell. Got a really good strength coach. He's got me going, so thought no better way to show the Bahamas than a snorkel and a cutoff.
And when you found out where you were going, things were crackling over there on the campus.
Yeah, that's the Lee Corso Norm Head. Had to throw it off, make sure people knew who I was, like you couldn't tell with my dad bod anyway. It's called Club Lit, and it is part of enjoying success and celebrating after a win. So we got a DJ in there, got a disco ball, and I usually try to find something creative to do at the end of each win.
You know what, I just thought of this. It's such a great end to the college football season, especially at a school that sadly has been through a very difficult year early in the year with the unfortunate events that occurred over there. It had to be just a a cathartic event to end this year on such a great note.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the last home game of the year, Senior Day, right? A group of seniors that, I mean, they didn't pick me. You know, I wanted them. And you got a chance to play Marshall in the pouring down rain with the first chance to win 6 games in school history, be bowl eligible in school, you know, first time in school history. And you find a way to win at home, you know, in a really good late game and find a way to put it away late. Fans stormed the field, you know, for once, you know, football was important to the student body and it's becoming relevant in Charlotte, and all the things that you hoped you would accomplish and make it cool to play football at Charlotte, you're starting to feel some of that. And that was a culmination at Marshall for sure.
I'm wondering, because I've watched this before, and we had Bill Clark on not too long ago, who had to deal with, you know, fighting Alabama down the road in Auburn, and then they shut his program down, and then he built it back up. And there was a sense in years past, Coach, that urban schools, cities, and you know, schools in big cities just couldn't make it. So I'm really interested how this program has lifted off, and I know the crowds have been good. I live here, and I've kept up with it fairly closely. It's been a remarkable story.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest difference is, I mean, you know, there's always a South Carolina, a Clemson, a Duke, you know, Virginia, what ACC, SEC game that's going on at the same time we're playing.
Right.
And I think what makes us unique is accessibility. And I say to our players all the time, if they know you and they like you, they'll come pull for you. It's a heck of a lot easier to get out of our parking garage than it is at the University of Tennessee. You know?
Yeah, that's true.
It's different when the head football coach or the defensive coordinator or the starting running back is going around saying, thank you for coming to practice, you know, great to meet you. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, you build a fan base where people pull for you because they like you. And, you know, our guys have a rule. They go shake 4 hands every day in class. And that is, now you go from getting, you know, 800 students to a game to 5,300 students at a game because they like our players. They understand they're not just some jocks sitting in the back of the room, these entitled guys that feel like they deserve the world, that they're students, you know, and that they're likable. And it's our job to do the same thing in this city, make sure that people know us. They want to come pull for us. We make it hard on them to go 2 hours down the road to a South Carolina game. And I think, to me, at this level, that's how you build support.
And listen, you get great exposure. I mean, you played, Clemson this year, I think?
We did.
I mean, that has to be, I mean, it's never easy playing Clemson for anyone. South Carolina just lost to them rather badly at home. But what was that experience like for your program?
Incredible until the ball was kicked off. You know, I mean, yeah, there's no doubt about it. You know, I was at Austin Peay when we played Georgia. We'll open up at Tennessee next year at Charlotte, and those are big games. We'll play Duke. You know, down the road we'll play South Carolina. We'll play Florida. We have home and homes coming up with Duke, North Carolina, and Maryland. Well, they'll come to our place. So it's great exposure. I mean, it's incredible. And I tell it in recruiting, it's a chance to play against the biggest, baddest guys in the country. You know, obviously, we've got a couple guys that have dreams of playing in the NFL, and that's the first film they're going to turn on. If you can compete against Clemson, then you may have an opportunity to play in the National Football League. So it's great exposure, number one. It gives us a great test for our football program, and obviously learning from what Dabo's doing, and he's a guy I've looked up to for a long time. Sure. So a great environment.
And I don't think people realize that programs like this have good players. I mean, FAU has one of the top players at his position in the country. Other players too. I mean, all the great players don't go to Clemson, Ohio State, and Notre Dame. Sometimes they get lost in the shuffle.
Well, now in the NFL, I mean, you look at rosters, and you're talking probably 40% of guys are either from, you know, Group of 5 schools or FCS schools. And I mean, we have 3 guys this year that will play in the East-West game. That have legitimate opportunities to possibly be combine-type guys that, you know, have draftable-type grades. 3 guys in one class. That's a big deal. You know, we got a starting offensive lineman, Nate Davis, for the Tennessee Titans, and Larry Ogunjobi is with the Cleveland Browns. So that's a program that's been playing football for 6 years, you know, and there's great players at every level, and it's not hard to find them now.
And what I find interesting, too, because, you know, listen, I'm as bad as it gets when it comes to somewhat scoffing at big-time programs proclaiming that they are bowl eligible, and there's a big difference in in an SEC school saying, "Hey, we got to 6 wins," and what you're doing. Tell the audience. I mean, we saw the pictures, but getting to a bowl game means what to a school like yours?
I mean, I think anytime it's the first time you've done something, it means a lot. Now your expectations change. You know, I mean, when I took the job, it was how do we find a way to get a bowl game? How do we find a way to provide some relevancy for our university and for our athletic department? And then you win 7 games, and now all of a sudden the expectations change. Now it goes, well, you better win 8, you better win 9, you better win a conference championship. So I think anytime it's the inaugural game, it's going to mean a lot. Now you hope that this becomes something that people mark on their calendar in December, not just cross your fingers. It means a lot. I mean, it's a chance for us to play on ESPN, the first bowl game of the season, December the 20th, take our guys on an experience. We're going to go stay 5 days in Atlantis.
It's nice.
I mean, these guys won't have another trip.
No.
A lot of them won't have another trip like this in their life. So the culmination of believing in something bigger than yourself, that, you know, taking a new staff under your wing and saying, I'll believe in what you're doing, and fighting through, at one point in time was a 2-5 record to win 5 in a row and go in 7-5 and play in a bowl game. Here's your reward. You're going to the Bahamas for 5 days, playing on ESPN at 2 o'clock on December the 20th, having another opportunity to put your brand out there.
And we see this all the time, and certainly, I mean, you're benefiting as well. I mean, I realize you're the head coach, but your brand is getting pretty hot, and I know that you don't want to think about that, but you have to. It's your life. We've seen a lot of movement down the road at Appalachian State. We just interviewed Eli the other day, who landed at Missouri. How do you deal with that part of it? Because you are quite a hot young coach.
Well, I got to keep my wife off of Twitter. That's the biggest deal. But I think the great part about it is it means you're having success. The other part about it for me is that I'm not looking. You know,
Right.
I'm in a great spot. This was a job that I pinpointed and said I want. You know, I always look back to, I would have a really hard time, and it doesn't mean other people are wrong for doing it, but I would have a really hard time doing a press conference at another school after not even having a recruiting class and after having not even been there a year. That didn't settle well with me. It wasn't, you know. I know that there's life-changing money involved. I know that there's exposure involved. I mean, you got a chance to be on your show once a week instead of once a year, you know. But I think that we've got a really good thing going. We live in an unbelievable city. My wife's happy, and we've been there for 1 year. That's hard to keep. It was a lot easier for me to stomach going back and risking, you know, are you going to be as hot a year from now as you are right now, versus jumping ship and it not working, and you say, I never really completed anything.
And that's such an interesting challenge. I've talked, and you've talked to more than I have probably, but you know, making the wrong move can really destroy your career. I know you talk to people about stuff like that. How do you know when or where? And I don't mean this disrespectfully toward where you are, but it's just a generality of being a young coach on the rise.
Well, I mean, for me, it's always, how do I keep my assistants? You know, and obviously, when you've got guys that have done a really good job and you've created a buzz, it's not just the head coach you got to worry about, it's the assistants. And to me, what Dabo has shown at Clemson is the continuity that he's been able to provide for his staff is I think, a reason why he's had so much success. Now, you look on the other hand, and Nick Saban replaces coordinators every year, and he still wins. That's how good he is. I'm not that good. I'm only as good as the people that are around me, and I got to keep them. And so, obviously, there's different money that's involved at these levels. It's life-changing, family-changing type of money. But for me, being at a place with a really good quality of life, with the assistants you want to be around, and being in a program where you feel like the vision is matched by your administration is a big deal. Yeah, I don't think you can replace that quality of life.
While we have you here, and certainly we're 2 weeks away from the playoffs, I am interested in a scouting report on Clemson, because you spent plenty of time getting ready for them, and you saw them in their place. What did you see when you played Clemson?
I feel like the Simmons kid played free safety, linebacker, and defensive end on every play. I mean, he is a specimen and very, very difficult to scheme against. I think their back five are really good, probably as good as anybody in the country. Obviously, losing 3 first-round draft picks on the defensive line, they look different. They just they do enough schematically defensively where they'll give you a hard time. It feels like every play they run a different defense at you and give you a different look. You know, and everybody's scared to death to go fast on them because you don't want to give the ball back to their offense. I mean, the running back is unbelievable. I mean, obviously the quarterback is an NFL guy for sure, maybe a first, the #1 pick overall, and then they got, guys that look like Dick's Sporting Goods mannequins running routes, so it's like, what do? I'm going to go fast and try to confuse their defense, but if I go 3 and out, I'm going to give the ball back to their offense that could score on me in one play. So, and I just think what makes Clemson different, in my opinion, is they never seem to get tired of beating your rear end. They don't get tired of winning. It's not, I mean, they win, 62-17 in the ACC championship, and Dabo's running at midfield like he's never won an ACC championship before. And I think that resonates in their locker room. They enjoy winning. They enjoy playing with each other. And to me, teams that want to keep playing in December and in January are usually the teams that have the most success.
Finally, Coach, before you go, you have the trip to the Bahamas coming up. I'm just guessing you try to get as much work done now as opposed to getting down there at the Atlantis, because it's quite a place.
Yeah, I mean, we need to have our game plan done by the time we leave Monday morning. We're getting, the crazy part about it is when you play on the 20th, you're going to do signing day in the Bahamas, which will be a different type of experience. The other thing about it is you really have 2 weeks on the road as a head coach to go see your recruits, and you're also trying to prepare for a bowl game. So we've been strategic about, practicing on the weekends or practicing Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You're having official visits, and you've been on the road all week long. So it'll be nice to get on the plane and go to the Bahamas and be able to be with my family and relax for just a second. And I think we've got a good game plan together and a good scheme. Our players have been able to lock back in. That's the biggest thing to me is you're giving them the whole week just to lift and run, and now you got to snap back in and get back into football shape. So I don't know. It's my first time. I don't have all the answers. I got a losing record as a head coach, so it's not like I got it figured out. But we're learning on the run and having a lot of fun doing it.
I don't think you're going to have a losing record for much longer, Coach. What a pleasure to meet you and to have you on the program, and all the best down there.
Thank you very much for having me. Great to meet you.
Great, sir. Anyway, we've been as we've been talking here, your son Eli has been in the other room. He's been
hey, dude.
He's been running the show here. He's got a future.
That's right. If I can just get him to like Charlotte as much as Clemson, we'll be in good shape.
Well,
all he wanted to do was play putt-putt at the Clemson game.
I'll talk to him as soon as we're down here.
No excuses. I got no excuses.
Well, what a busy day it's already been, and we're only an hour and 20 minutes into the show. We had Coach Pittman on, where he dropped the news that he has hired Barry Odom to be his defensive coordinator at the University of Arkansas. We just talked to Coach Healy, and I got to tell you, Will Healy is going to be a star in this business. I mean, this guy will be a major coach by, probably next year. He's really a charismatic guy, and there's no doubt in my mind he's going to be a big star. Let's get to the calls at 855-242-7285, and Tom is in West Virginia. Hey, Tom.
Hey, Paul. How are you doing?
We are doing great. Thank you.
Hey, I had a question and I have a suggestion.
Okay.
The first question is this. When West Virginia left the Big East to go to the Big 12, Missouri moved to the SEC. Why was that done? Because it seems to me geographically that West Virginia would be more of a fit than Missouri, and also West Virginia brings in 50 to 60,000 fans a week when you go down to the ball games, and West Virginia historically has played the SEC about 50-50, including beating Georgia in
Okay,
Atlanta.
let me interrupt you, okay?
Yeah.
I happen to agree with you, by the way, and I advocated West Virginia getting in. Here's why Missouri got in. At the time, the SEC had not launched the SEC network yet, and Missouri represented two major television markets, St. Louis and Kansas City. And unfortunately, West Virginia does not represent or project any television market. So I think it was partly due to geographical footprint. There were some other explanations given in terms of the academic prowess of the University of Missouri. It's a very fine school, by the way. I'm not saying West Virginia isn't. I'm just telling you that Missouri is. And there was, for whatever reason, there was a little bit of blowback. I thought West Virginia would have added a lot to this league. I think in some ways, culturally, it better fit.
Okay, the second thing is my suggestion. I've thought this over and over, and I think that what if the SEC invited West Virginia and Clemson into the conference, because then Clemson could no longer have to deal with the ACC being what they are.
Hold on a second, Tom. You got to remember, it's not as easy as 1 + 2 = 3.
Oh, of course, I understand.
Here's why. I mean, Florida State and Clemson were both on the SEC list many, many years ago, as the University of Texas was back in the late 80s and early 90s. But every time you get a Clemson or another school, let's say Clemson, who do you think? So Clemson ended up, I think, South Carolina ended up getting in. Clemson was also, I can't remember if Clemson was ever on the list or not. I think the SEC went after Florida State, and Florida State didn't want any part of the league, and they went out. Then they moved into South Carolina, and then they went after Texas, and ended up with Arkansas. Clemson just somehow, once you got South Carolina, you weren't getting Clemson. For the same reason I just got through telling you, the state's too small.
Okay, well, I've been going to West Virginia games since Roger Staubach killed us back in 1963.
Listen,
so West Virginia has improved in scheduling from
no doubt. Listen, I hate to run, Tom. West Virginia is the fan base there is as good as it gets. Hey, thanks for the call. Didn't mean to run you, but we are so loaded up with guests here. We have not had much time. We have to go back to a break. We are coming right back. I don't know. The show's been amazing today with Sam Pittman dropping the Barry Odom news and Will Healy just blowing everyone away, and Coach Burrow. Guys, it's been pretty special first hour and 45 minutes.
We're loving it. I didn't think we could have a good show on Friday without being on the road, but proving me wrong so far.
Proving me wrong.
Yeah.
We've had fathers and sons.
Right.
Spend the father and son like
theme.
half hour
Yeah.
or 45 minutes there, with
young Eli sat right here.
Eli waving in, and how cool is it? I think it's great that Jimmy Burrow is so open with his time. I'm sure that there's tons of media requests to come in, Paul, but excuse me, I texted him this morning, and he was, yeah, I would love to come on, and it's just,
cool.
Your son's about to win the Heisman. You're down in New York, you're coming back from Orlando, and just to be so gracious with time, it's very cool, and it's kind of refreshing to have somebody so open with who's just taking the college football world by storm.
I mean, it just seems like we're just Coach Burrow is like taking us along for the ride.
Right. He's our inside man, and he's fanboying his way through the whole thing.
Yeah.
His voice was lighting up talking about Johnny
Unitas. He's worse than me when
and,
it comes to meeting these famous. I mean, you know how giddy I get when I said, I can't believe who I met. Like,
yeah,
I'm like that.
Johnny
So
Unitas,
if you were,
his son.
Paul, you've been to these things. Let me ask Brent, if you were walking into the Heisman ceremony, who would be the first person you want to go shake hands with?
O.J. Simpson.
Not there. Absent.
Not attending.
Absent.
Reggie Bush.
Absent.
Okay.
You want to hit the Manziel for the hat trick there, Paul? Or
No Manziel.
No, but honestly, Paul, I mean, you've been to these things, but if you were going this week.
I was on I think I told you, I was at Tim Tebow's event a couple of years ago, and I got in a car, and I just jumped in, and sitting next to me in the back seat was Marcus Allen and Archie Griffith.
That's cool.
And I'm like going, holy cow. And they said, hey, Paul. I'm like going, how do you guys know me? I mean, it was just such a cool conversation. And I'm easily blown away by people like that. And the Heisman, no matter where you go, there is somebody even more famous than the previous guy. Okay, and speaking of famous, in the pantheon of Finebaum callers, this next guy is right there at the top.
Man, that was a great interview with Mr. Burrow, and I know he's a proud father, and his son worked hard this year, and he's well deserving of all the accolades and awards that he's getting. Did you know that there's a male and a female high school Heisman winner?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there is, and ironically, the male Heisman winner is the son of a friend of mine. He's the kid's from Greenwood, Mississippi. His name's Sanjay. I'm sure Mr. Burrow and Joe and all the people up there will meet him because they're at the ceremonies right now. And he's a tennis player, an exceptional student, but
That's cool.
A young man from Greenwood, Mississippi. I don't know who the young lady is, but yeah, there is.
Let me ask you: is Greenwood is Greenwood in the Delta?
Yeah, it's on the edge of the Delta.
Okay.
If you, it's just a little north of Yazoo City, on the edge of the.
Because I always get
hills,
Greenville and Greenwood confused.
Yeah, when you drop off the hill, the highway leads you to Greenville, which is.
Okay, I once went to Itabena. Which one was that?
Yeah, that's in between, and that's in between, and that's where Mississippi Valley is.
Yeah, I think I stayed in Green something.
Greenwood. You stayed in Greenwood.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right there.
Green something.
Itabena is like the suburb of Greenwood.
By the way, I don't mean to jump into your story. My first job, I covered Grambling, and I spent the weekend with Eddie Robinson,
Sure.
and he let me ride the bus and have all access. And our
I
hotel was in
That'd be like
Greenwood,
hanging out
Mississippi.
I'd be hanging out with Bear Bryant, man. I mean,
It's pretty close.
He's a legend. Oh, I can imagine. He's legendary for sure. But being a villain's a hard job, Paul. It really is. But guess it's gotten so bad. Guess who has volunteered to be my PR guy?
Who's that?
Bama Nick.
Oh my goodness! When Bama Nick offers his services, it's probably time to find a new profession.
But no, I wonder. A lot of people are taking this a little too serious, and they don't really realize how we are and how the show is and things of that nature, and everything with me anyway. All this is all fun, and I really appreciate Larry's valiant effort yesterday. I wish he hadn't thrown my name in there on the apology deal because you do not owe me an apology. I mean, speaking for myself. And what he was complaining about when you hang up on us and things of that nature, just like you did me on Wednesday, well, I had that coming to me Wednesday. I deserved that Wednesday, and I knew it was coming. I knew when I made that call how it was going to end up. But that was okay because, we can have fun like that and without it being personal. And Larry needs to realize that you're pulling for LSU really now. That's not really – they're taking it personal when they've got to realize that this is the SEC network. And the only team in the playoffs this year is LSU, which is the team in the SEC. You're obligated to promote LSU, not that they don't deserve it. And, we've had our time, and this year is not our time. We just need to be patient and wait till next year and hope next year is our time. But it's not personal when you hang up on people, and I wish they wouldn't take it that way. And there's a lot of chatter on Twitter that you exploit callers. And if you'll look last night, I said, no, he does not exploit callers. I said, when Paul calls you a friend, he means that you're his friend. And they go, oh, he tells everybody that. He says, you don't hang out with him. You don't go have drinks at his house with him. And I said, no. I said, I don't. I said, we don't exchange Christmas cards. I said, but, when you call into someone over years, weekly, you develop a relationship. And again, he tried to downplay that you don't really care.
But hold on a second. When we were together recently, there's not anything I wouldn't tell you because I trust you.
Well, you told me things. I wasn't even going to say that, but we had a 30-minute conversation before you had to go on there, and you told me 4 or 5 things that you would not have told me if me and you weren't personal
absolutely
friends.
not.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt in my mind, and so
no. I mean, if you revealed them right now, my career ends as we speak.
I'm not, and again, I haven't said a word. I talked about one thing to I-Man, and he discussed that with you, and you know about it, and we're all cool with that, and that's the only thing.
And by the way, 2 weeks ago when we were in Auburn, I had about a 45-minute conversation with I-Man that was fantastic.
I know. I knew he was coming, and like I said, he and I talked about one of those things, and he's the only person that I discussed that with because I know you and him are tight too, and I know if he was with me and you that day, you would have said the same thing that you said to me that day.
Well, no, because
you know what I mean?
listen, I see some of that stuff, and by the way, there's nothing you can do, but I trust the people that really know me to make that judgment.
Yeah, and like I said, people think that you really don't care about us callers, but you are a very compassionate person, and it's genuine. And I've expressed it to that person. And again, whether they believe it or not, a lot of us know that. Some people take it too far, like Larry did yesterday. And you care a lot about Larry. I know that you care about Larry.
I do, but Larry sometimes
he's taking things so personal.
Larry,
you know what I mean?
as Harvey Updike once said, Larry's just too full of Bama.
Well, we all are. But, I just wanted to nip this thing in the bud and get this thing on course because, again,
by the way, maybe that wasn't a good comparison.
You hollered at me one time so much you said your throat hurt for like 3 days afterwards. So, this is all in fun. And like we say, we'll race the board, and each day is a new day.
Yeah.
And if I've offended any of the LSU people, I'm sorry, but I'm a Bama fan. And I'm also an Ole Miss fan because my boys graduated from Ole Miss. And so I'm not going to pull for it. Well, wait, let me put it this way. I'll be pulling for the Tigers this year, but it'll be the Clemson Tigers. But because I don't want to pull for a division rival. But that don't make me a villain, per se. It just makes me a disgruntled Alabama fan. But I'm fixing to be hunting for the next couple of weeks, and I'm going to drop off the radar. I'm going to call back in around the playoffs. You guys have a happy holiday. Tell Miss Finebaum hello.
I will.
And thanks for taking my call.
Squirrel, thank you very much. Great to have you on. Rory is in Pennsylvania. Hello, Rory.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Two things. One is I think I need Christian's number because I want to open up a YouTube account and get on there. And I think we're going to have Billy Ray as our first caller because there's not enough baseball talk. Second is that was a joke, Paul. You with me?
I missed the first two jokes here.
Did
you see? Here's my problem. We all went out for Christmas, and the eggnog's wearing off. Can you get me another? Can you hit me again? Yeah.
Paul, can you hear?
Yeah, I got the idea that it was a joke. I just didn't laugh.
All right, sorry, I missed it. Anyway, the reason I'm calling is just because, and I know I'm going to be wrong on this one, and I'm sure you're going to prove me wrong, but I was calling about Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
I wanted to make an argument as to why he's not getting enough publicity and maybe enough.
He's going to finish third in the Heisman. I don't know what else you want.
Well,
he nearly cost his. I love Jalen, but he nearly cost his team the Big 12 championship. The show's live. What a first half with Coach Healy from Charlotte, Sam Pittman, and Jimmy Burrow. We'll continue our conversation about the Army-Navy game a little bit later on with a retired general. And let's get back to the calls. And Mary is up next. Hello, Mary.
Hey, Paul. How you doing?
We are great. Thank you.
Well, I just wanted to say not every Alabama fan is like Larry. And I just want to say...
Some are sober.
They really are. And I believe in the, in what Alabama stands for. No, we haven't had our best year. But I just want to say I do believe that they will come back. The great thing about being in the SEC is you do support the other teams. I do support LSU. I'm proud of, what they've accomplished. LSU has never been where they've been. And yet, we wish we could be there every year, but we're not going to be there every year. And, you just have to respect the other players, the other teams, the other coaches. But I do believe that Coach Saban has many more years. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, listen, he's not done. That's obvious. He's still recruiting at the highest possible level. He's coaching at a very high level, and this isn't the end.
Well, I believe that with all my heart. I think that with the future ahead of us, we just persevere. We hold our heads high. We play Michigan like everything is up to the players. I don't know who's going to play. Some of them may bow out, but I hope that the majority of our players play because I think that we have a great team. No, we're not number one, but we're still good, and we're in the top. Well, I don't know if we're in the top 10 right now. I was disappointed that we were number 13, but I do believe that we have a good team, and I'm proud of them. So
Well, there's no
just
doubt
wanted to
about
say
that. Thank you for the call, Mary. I really appreciate it. Al is in Boca Raton, and you are next up.
Hey, good afternoon, Paul. Happy
Hey there.
holidays.
Happy holidays.
Good. I haven't spoken to you in a long time. Listen, number one about Nick Saban is this. He was named Decade of the Coach. I'm sorry. He was named Decade of the Coaches of the Decade of this year, of this decade. So was Bear Bryant named the Decade of the Coach in the 60s.
Right.
But there's only been two coaches at one school have been named decade. That's Saban and Bryant. So that's a nice feeling. You know, with Alabama losing 2 games this year, you got to consider the injuries we had, and plus our recruiting has been good. But when you lose coaches, some coaches like the man in Tennessee, and you got other people leaving, it's hard to rekindle the fire with new coaches. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do, sure.
And it's hard to so maybe this coming year, I know we're number 1 in recruiting this year. Maybe we can do a better job this coming year, and get back up in the top 4 in the playoffs next year. Look, I really think LSU is a good team, but I really think Ohio State's going to take it all. They've got a great defense. I'm not a Big Ten fan, but I'm looking at it as a realist. I think their defense is very good, and I think it's going to be a good game, but I hope LSU wins, but I really think Ohio State's going to pull it out. What do you think?
I don't know yet, but I think those are the 2 best teams. Thanks for the call. Rusty is calling next. Hey, Rusty.
Hey, Paul. How are you?
We are great. Thank you for calling.
Hey, glad to get through. Only call in about once or twice a year, and I don't know if you remember, I'd called last year and reminded you I'd been over at the old WAPI back in the early 90s.
Oh, I do remember that.
FM when you were there with Bob Lockamy. And this isn't even why I called in. I had a comment and a question, if you'll allow me while I have my opportunity, because
Sure.
It's hard to get through. But I wasn't even calling in about this, but as I was listening to Joe Burrow's dad on the interview and thinking, when you're asking those questions, that, you know, how can a kid or a father you probably don't even think as a kid, you're going to win the Heisman. And I wonder, I have a question for you, Paul. I'm wondering, almost 30 years ago, you're a beat writer, then we're working at the WAPI FM in Birmingham. And when I listen to your show on the radio every day to work, I still consider this a Birmingham, Alabama show. It's when I go back home to watch the rest of the show that I miss while I'm at work, and I see you on television. And now I'm seeing, even this year, you've taken another step, now the SEC, and, you work for ESPN and you're out of New York. And I'm just wondering for you, did you think you'd be where you are now 30 years ago with all this? And I know you're very humble, but can you just talk about, did you think you would have this kind of success with yourself and your show?
No, Rusty, I didn't. I remember when I was really young in this business, there was a job opening either in, I think it was in Knoxville, and they talked to me about it briefly, and I'm thinking, what a career that would be to be at a newspaper in a college football town, whether it's my alma mater or not, and do that my entire life. I did not, like any young reporter, I had aspirations, but I didn't think this would happen. So I still can't believe it sometimes. So it makes it more interesting when I walk in. I told the story in Wednesday. I was in New York meeting with some of my bosses. I've been called. I was called in on the carpet because of my treatment of a squirrel, and I was talking about when I go to ESPN every weekend. Some of you may know, some of you may not, because it's pretty early Sunday morning. I walk in there before the sun's up, and I'm walking around, and I'm like, going, I can't. And part of it's the fact that ESPN is just the most massive place you've ever been, and it is the epicenter of sports. And I've never walked in that building, and I'm there every single Sunday morning during the football season, where I'm not in awe of where I am and where I work, and sometimes have a hard time believing that I'm about to go on the air.
Well, I just wanted to congratulate you on your success. And again, I was just thinking of that while I was waiting to get through here as I heard the other comments. But just what an amazing! I love listening to you on the radio. I only get to call in once or twice a year, but and I love to watch.
Well, Rusty,
it back on
those were
television.
amazing days back at that old studio on Highland Avenue.
Yeah, they were great. Anyway, I'll get to my comment, and I had two quick questions, and I'll try to make them as fast as I can. I know you have a lot of callers to get to, but I am a diehard Alabama fan, but I'm certainly not the typical fan that I know you talk about that are, so disgruntled even when we lose a game or two. But just like the Jalen Hurts story was such a great story last year, no matter what team you pull for, with how he came back when Tua got injured and won the SEC championship, and I think he's done great this year. I think the Coach O story is incredible, and what I thought about with all his success this year and maybe the last few years at LSU is I thought about that Troy loss a couple years ago. College football is a lot of pressure on these coaches, and, a lot of coaches get let go even within a year or two if they're not winning right away. And it was I know this is just silly, but I thought Coach O fit LSU for his voice alone. He should be the LSU coach forever. But he's a great coach, and I think his success is not just he's obviously a great recruiter and he's been a great coach, but I think his success is that he put great people around him as well, the coordinators that have come in. And anyway, I just think even as an Alabama fan, I can appreciate a great story, and we've had the best of LSU for many years. I congratulate them on winning that game. It was still a close game. I was proud of Alabama for, we were 5 points from beating the number one team in the country, and I will be pulling for LSU to win the whole championship because I'm an SEC guy, and they deserve their moment. And with all that in mind about Coach O putting coordinators around him, one of my questions was, when you look at Saban and he won 3 championships in a 4-year period. Now it's been a couple years, but he's won 2 championships in the last 5 years, so that's still not too bad. And they're still going to be very relevant the next few years, and I still think they can win another championship. But what is your opinion of, do you think, in those first 3, winning 3 in a 4-year period, Saban had, he had coordinators for more than a year. He had Kirby and Jeremy Pruitt on the defense. He had McElwain and Kiffin for periods of time. And now the last 5 years, do you think that's and again, not to take away
Rusty,
from
let me
Saban's
jump in here.
success.
I think that's really the problem. Thank you very much for the call, and look forward to talking to you soon. No matter who you are, if you change personnel all the time, if we had and by the way, I've done this before with a different producer every day, and this is minute, it's infinitesimal compared to Saban. You can't exist when you do not trust or even know who your support people are. Let's go to a break. 855-242-7285. And to get more of your phone calls, we have a retired Major General